Hey guys, Razorblade Mango here, and today I'm going to be talking about Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Yeah, so, for those who are new to the channel, I'm somewhat notorious on this channel and in my circle of friends for not particularly liking the previous Spider-Man game from Insomniac. To this very day, I still get comments on my review of it from back then that range from healthy disagreement to go fuck yourself, you're stupid. And whenever I bring that up among my friends, they all just kind of look at me like I'm some kind of social pariah, or they just go, what? Really? What the hell? You don't like that first Spider-Man game? That first Spider-Man game is badass. No, I did not particularly like it. If you want to know why, I have a video review on it. You can go watch that. But because of that, I admittedly went into Miles Morales with low expectations. When I watched a lot of the footage, to me, none of it really looked all that amazing. It looked good. I thought it showed promise, but I never was wowed by any of it. Beyond, I think, Spider-Cat, and that's only because I thought that was just hilarious. So, went into Miles Morales with low expectations, and to my great surprise, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a really fun, enjoyable game. And for my money, this is the best superhero game I've played since Batman Arkham City. Easily, this is the best one. So this makes it, in my opinion, my favorite superhero game in almost 10 years. Unlike the first game, Miles Morales kind of won me over very quickly in the beginning with a really inspired and exciting opening set piece where Peter and Miles are chasing Rhino through the city and a shopping mall. It's just such an explosive, exciting opening set piece that just put this giant smile on my face that I just went, wow, this is cool. This is something new. One of my fondest video game memories as a kid is having my mind blown by the web-swinging gameplay in the PS2 Spider-Man movie game. I remember sitting in my dad's shop playing it on the PS2, and I remember just my eyes opened so wide, and I literally called out to my dad. I'm like, Dad, come here, I'm Spider-Man! And he could not give less of a fuck, but it was just such a mind-blowing moment for a 12-year-old playing a video game. And there were moments in Miles Morales that evoked that childhood memory, which I think is extraordinary. So, I've been pondering why this game worked for me, where the original 2018 one didn't. And I've come up with a few key reasons as to why I think that is. 60 frames per second is a godsend for this series. I don't know why Insomniac didn't do this to begin with, because it makes the gameplay so much better. It's like on a whole other league compared to the original game when it comes to the frame rate. And it makes swinging and fighting and doing all these flips and acrobatics so much more fluid and so much more satisfying. Just get rid of that garbage 30 frames per second frame rate. Put on 60 frames. Forget the ray tracing. Forget all those nice lighting effects, whatever. 60 frames. Performance mode. That is how you need to be playing Miles Morales. Sony and Insomniac did a huge disservice by not showing most of this game at 60 frames when they were marketing it. A lot of it was 30 frames, and it just simply does not look and play anywhere near as excellent without the 60 frames added to it. And also, another key difference is the Venom Powers are a joy to mess around with. Combined with the cool DualSense feedback and the buttery smooth frame rate, the combat is on a whole different level here compared to the first one. And with Miles' new abilities, such as the camouflaging effect, the Venom stealth attacks, stealth is just way, way more enjoyable compared to the first game. The first game, it just felt like, not really that well developed. It just felt like kind of something you do a little bit before you eventually got caught. With Miles Morales, it's almost encouraged for you to remain stealthy because of how much weaker Miles is compared to Parker and how many more enemies are on the screen compared to the original Spider-Man game. And at its very best, The stealth reminded me of moments in, like I mentioned previously, Arkham City, which has some of the best stealth combat I've ever played. I love Arkham City to death. I don't think Miles Morales is on that level, but it comes close in some areas with the stealth stuff. And after this, I can't go back to Peter's regular-ass Spider-Man powers. I can't do that. I need these Venom powers from now on. They're just so much damn fun. You, like, fling enemies up into the air, and then you zip around and kick the shit out of them. You do, like, force lightning attacks, or whatever the fuck the Venom lightning attacks. And there's just, it's so much fun. I love it. Another big difference is that the wintry Christmas atmosphere that New York City has in this game is so much more aesthetically pleasing compared to the, it's not, I wouldn't call the original game's portrayal of New York City generic, but for me personally, the wintry Christmas vibe that this game has is just much more pleasing to me. It just feels like a warm blanket being wrapped over me, especially now that we're in the winter season. I think it's just a perfect fit. And I particularly enjoyed exploring Harlem decked out in Christmas decorations and lights. And that to me was just a lot of fun. That to me was almost as fun as just zipping around with the buttery smooth frame rate, exploring the city like that. Another key difference is I think the open world elements are structured much better this time around compared to the original. Gone are the annoying ass Ubisoft radio towers. A good fucking riddance. Get them out of here. Don't need them. Don't want them. Don't need them. The collectibles and side missions are doled out way more efficiently and gradually compared to the first game, and the quality of them is just simply better. I thought it was a genius idea, instead of these stupid radio towers, to have Miles use this in-game app that his friend creates. And to me, that's just much more thematically interesting, and it makes more sense than Spider-Man zipping around to these stupid radio towers. It makes sense. It's within Miles' character to have Genki make him this Spider-Man app. It's great. And I actually wanted to get 100% completion this time around. Unlike the first game where I just got burned out way before I could finish everything, I actually got 100% completion in this game. Again, I hardly ever do that, but I wanted to do that for this game because of how scaled down it was compared to the first one. And look, I still think the open world bloat could be trimmed down just a bit more, but it's nowhere near as tiresome and overwhelming as the first game. In fact, I think the collectibles this time, some of them at least, they're almost necessary in order to really get more emotionally out of the main story, which I think that's great. And there's a particular section after you complete the main campaign that has, it's my favorite bit of collectibles in the game, and it's really touching and sweet, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but I thought it was just great. It's just a lovely addition in the epilogue. If I had any complaints, and this is where we're gonna get into the negatives, I think the story is way too predictable. Look, a lot of these superhero games have predictable stories. Like, I never once bought in that stupid fucking Square Enix Avengers game that Captain America was dead. I never once believed it, and from what I understand, I was right. I just think superhero games really need more stories that are just unique to really shake things up. Never once did I think this particular story did anything to surprise me or put a unique spin on the Miles Morales origin story or lore. Pretty much every big twist I saw coming like a mile away, and that's not how it should be. The story should always be 2 steps ahead of the viewer. The viewer should not be 3 steps ahead of the story. And I also think some of the relationships Miles has with some of the characters feel either kind of flat or a tad underdeveloped, and as a result, some of the big, quote, heartwarming, unquote, moments miss the mark for me. I think some of the scenes with his mom are sweet, but others, not so much. I think Genki in particular is just not a very interesting character. He just comes across as one of these, like, generic nerd characters, I guess. And if the story was more exciting and better developed, I would rank this game among my favorites of the console generation. Easily. I'm also not a big fan of unlocking some key skills and final upgrades behind New Game Plus. I understand the desire to encourage people to play New Game Plus. I get it. Ghost of Tsushima does this as well, but Ghost of Tsushima's New Game Plus came out a few months after the game itself, not right off the bat. But I think some players just should want to do New Game Plus just because the game itself is that good, rather than create this artificial need to do it just to fully max out Spider-Man. And it's also kind of buggy. Definitely nothing an easy checkpoint refresh didn't solve, but I do have to mention it, and I've seen some hilarious bugs that this game has. The most notorious one is where it just turned into random scenery objects like garbage cans and lamp posts. I've never have gotten that bug, but I wish I had, because that would just make me laugh my ass off. It's more stuff that kind of halted progress, which was annoying, like containers, story mandatory generators not activating properly when I hit them, or doors not opening. It just, some of that shit just got a little bit too much. So even with all that, as someone who is sick to death of superhero stuff, I gotta say, with Miles Morales, I experienced a childlike joy and giddiness playing this game. Like, I got audibly excited when I got a new costume that I thought looked really cool, and that happens very frequently in this game. I think the costumes in this game are so much better than the first game. I never do that. I never go like, woohoo, when I get a new costume, but I did multiple times in Miles Morales because they just looked that cool. And the process to getting them actually felt rewarding. It didn't feel like a fucking grind. It didn't feel like a chore to complete. Similar to Astro's Playroom, it did not feel like a chore to get 100% completion in this game. It was a treat to do that, because of how much fun the combat is, because of how fluid the navigation is this time. It's just all these like key changes to the structure, to the frame rate. It just makes this so much more enjoyable compared to the first one. And I know I've said that a lot, but it's true. I'm just so excited that I really enjoyed this game, and I think this is just easily the best superhero game I've played in a long time. So would I recommend Miles Morales? So if you have a PS4, I would say yes, but I think it benefits much more with the 60 frames per second option, which the PS4 version does not have, unfortunately. But if you have a PS5, yes, absolutely pick up Miles Morales. Absolutely. This is like one of the most enjoyable games I've played all year, just from a pure childlike wonder and giddiness perspective. And I'm excited for the next game. I wasn't excited to play the next game after the first one. I just kind of thought, okay. But now that they've made key design changes with this game, evidenced by Miles Morales, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the next one goes. I'm looking forward to it. So there is one section, though, that I wanted to save for the end, because it does involve a spoiler warning. So it's not a big story spoiler, but I am going to show footage of one of the costumes you get later on in the game, and the conclusion to one of the big side missions in the game, because it involves an element that I do want to briefly touch upon, because I think it's really sweet and heartwarming. So I'll give you a chance to opt out now. So if you want to play Miles Morales, please go out and play it. And yeah, for those who don't want to stay for the spoiler stuff, thank you guys for watching so much, and I'll catch you all later. Now let's talk about the spoilery stuff. There's a character named Haley in this game. Not a big character, but a significant side mission character that is deaf. It's this young teenage woman who is deaf. And in an era where I think so many publishers come across as phony when they try to bring the representation angle into their games. I mean, those fucking spineless, scummy cunts at Ubisoft being chief among them. I usually think all like the big publishers' attempts to do like the representation stuff just falls flat, because of how underdeveloped these characters are that they portray. And with this character, with Haley, I don't like her disability is part of her character, but it doesn't define who she is. And I don't mean for this to sound awkward, because I don't want this to sound like Kotaku's just absolutely abominable PS5 review that forced politics at the very end in such a awkward, clumsy, and annoyingly self-righteous way. But the few scenes with the deaf teenager Haley, I thought was just so sweet and sincere, and it almost kind of made me tear up a little bit, because I think in an era where I just see so many people just tearing each other apart over the stupidest shit, I just see just a world right now that is just so mean and ugly, and everyone is just mad at each other, and it's just so depressing to see a lot of the time. I think the moments between Miles and Haley when they are interacting with one another, it's a beautiful moments of humanity and positivity and mutual understanding that I think we need right now. And I think Insomniac's portrayal of Haley and her deafness came across as very sincere and respectful. And just from the small moments that you have with her as Miles, I thought just spoke so much more compared to all this lip service that a lot of publishers do about, oh, look how diverse our characters are, look how we have our representation, ha ha ha, look at us guys. I just feel like so many publishers just are so fake, so phony when it comes to that. But I think in Miles Morales there is a genuinely touching example of that, of a character with a disability that is given such a positive, well thought out and respectful portrayal in this, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. I loved it, and like I said, it almost made me cry. And this is what video games can do. This is what art can do, where it brings out an empathy within you, even if you cannot personally connect with it. I am not deaf, obviously. I don't know anyone personally that is deaf, or anyone that I'm close with is deaf, but through this character, what came out of me is this empathy for this character that has a disability. And I think that is just such a wonderful thing. I mean, I'm just trying to kind of keep this short and sweet, this part, but I really just need to emphasize that in a world of just such ugliness and everyone just tearing each other apart right now and so much uncertainty, I think moments of positivity like this are just, they need to be cherished. They need to be commended. So I give Insomniac all the credit in the world for this. It's just, they deserve a round of applause for how they portrayed Haley. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. So yeah, that's all. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will catch you all later. Bye.